suddenly things clicked in a way that I guess I thought would happen at first, but happened later. And that began sort of a 5-month stint of me experiencing stability for the first time. Hi, my name is Maya Schumer, and I both live with bipolar disorder as well as study it. I'm a researcher in the area of psychiatric neuroscience at McLean Hospital and Harvard Medical School. I am 31 years old, and I have lived with bipolar disorder for over 11 years. When I was diagnosed at age 20, it didn't come as any surprise because I had a strong family history of bipolar disorder. My biological father had it. But from age 20 to age 31, during which time I went through college and I did a PhD in neuroscience, I was never asymptomatic for longer than maybe 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Despite attending therapy, meeting with a psychiatrist, compliant and taking medication, making some lifestyle changes, and becoming more and more proactive over time, my illness and the severity and frequency of episodes and overall disability level also somehow got worse and worse and worse and worse. And this was really, really frustrating. And at this time, I also endured hospitalizations, again, repetitive, distressing episodes, debilitating episodes, dealing with chronic suicidality, dealing with psychosis, panic attacks. And again, I had a strong support network and whatnot, and I was compliant, but I was never stable. I was never really living well with bipolar disorder. And that was really up until I moved to Boston for my postdoctoral fellowship. And I started with a new psychiatrist who is now a renowned expert in metabolic psychiatry, Dr. Matthew Bernstein of both Ellenhorn and Accord. And when I came to him about a year and a half ago, I was over-medicated, I was not well, and I was just not in a good place. And transitions in general can be a very big deal for people with bipolar disorder. So all of that together, I started over the next several months to get worse and worse and worse, cycling through endless mania and then mixed episodes, and then finally arriving at suicidal depression. And all this time, I had actually become what I'll call keto curious about ketogenic diet and metabolic therapies for bipolar disorder because I had met and was following the work of Dr. Ian Campbell, Dr. Ali Houston, Dr. Chris Palmer. And I had it in the back of my mind that it was something I might be interested in. And then unbeknownst to me, Dr. Matthew Bernstein is an expert in this as well. And so I wanted to try ketogenic diet, but because I was so unwell and in such a high level of disability, I really needed help. And this nicely overlapped with the beginning and launch of Accord, of which Dr. Matt Bernstein is the medical director. And this is a Boston area, the first of its kind, metabolic psychiatry residential treatment program. So I really credit this program with which I did for 4 weeks, with getting me into ketosis. But I was still depressed, irritable, suicidal. And along the way, while we identified a carnitine deficiency, which we learned is associated with depression, adding that carnitine supplement, I was still, by the time I got out of the program, I was still not well. And I was still so frustrated with the fact that I couldn't get well. Out of frustration, I thought I needed to wean off keto. And in doing that, under the supervision of a keto certified nutritionist, and at that time, adding the lowest dose of lithium, suddenly things clicked in a way that I guess I thought would happen at first, but happened later. And that began sort of a 5-month stint of me experiencing stability for the first time. About 5 months in to this experience, I ended up having a very severe depression relapse, and nothing was helping. And it was the most suicidal I had ever been. And so I ended up also undergoing, as an adjunct to lithium and the ketogenic diet that I was on, 20 intravenous ketamine infusions, followed by a round of accelerated transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, here in Cambridge. And that really helped pull me out. And I didn't even think I would make it out of this one. And what was interesting is that this depression was so bad. I was drinking, I was self-harming. I thought I would act on my plan every single day, all day. That's how I would wait out each day, choosing whether or not to live. And wasn't getting a haircut because I didn't think I would, continue to keep doing life. But yet, if I really wanted to have screwed things up further, I could have broken ketosis, but I didn't. And I think that's really interesting when I look back. I thought I had no will to live, but I was still showing up for treatments and I maintained the diet somehow. And maybe it was just such secondhand nature, such routine. But even though treatments were coming and going, keto remained the constant. And now, since May, when all of those treatments ended, I've since experiencing what I'll call a round two, but an even stronger sense of remission and stability, where even things like my concentration have vastly improved in this way that I never had before. I no longer need a stimulant. I no longer have panic attacks. And I maintain this level of ketosis. I'm on a maintenance dose of lithium. I am still weaning off psychiatric medications that I was on for years that are no longer serving me. But I'm really, excited to live the rest of my life, if that sounds cheesy or whatnot. But I still can't get over, I guess, the novelty of finally living well with this illness. When I was at Accord, which is again a fantastic, really revolutionary treatment program, I was initially presented with the more classic keto ratio of either 2 to 1 or 1.5 to 1. That's fat to the amount of protein and possibly net carbs. And when I was in Accord, I was, again, still very depressed, had no hope and irritable, that I, after a while, didn't think that I liked this ratio, the way things looked on my plate. I realized I wanted a little more broccoli or a few more berries in the morning. And that's when I kind of realized, when I got out and started weaning, but then stayed, I found that, if I feel more comfortable at an almost 1.5 to 1 ratio, that's okay, because I realized keto is also scalable and I can, scale it up, scale it down depending on what I need. So at first I thought that keto wasn't for me, but I then realized, I can tweak things and make adjustments. And now it's second nature and it feels right for me. But knowing that you can tweak with the ratio, I think is really important, because it doesn't have to be presented or followed in this one strict way. It can be, personalized to your own personal preferences. And I think one other challenge just along the way, and first having that experience, those 5 months of stability, I thought that stability, that meant that I was bulletproof, that nothing could touch me, that I was, good and didn't really have to tweak anymore. And that really wasn't the case. But that desire to sort of hang on to what I thought was immovable did not really end up serving me and just made me more stressed. And I think I had this reaction because I had never felt this way before and I didn't want it to go. But to make it stay, it wasn't going to be by gripping it like on electrical wire, but by continuing to let it grow and let it build. And after that depressive relapse this past winter, I've really felt it noticeably growing and continuing to get stronger and more vast and manifest in different ways. And one other last challenge was sort of accepting that there would be, little fluctuations. For example, I no longer have panic attacks, which I did for almost my entire life. But now when I do get stressed, which is occasionally, I will have some what I'll call light psychosis. But it is both not distressing and I'm able to tolerate it and let it go away naturally. And I wonder if that is because I'm on a ketogenic diet, does that make these other fluctuations more tolerable? I still deal with chronic suicidality. I can have suicidal thoughts, but I can notice them and let them go just as I would, in mindfulness meditation. And I wonder, is this because I have this base that enables me to, again, tolerate and deal with these different fluctuations? The advice I would give to someone who's interested in starting these metabolic therapies or why they're worth it, I would say that, you can embrace what I'll call pluralism, which is, in the context of treatment, the idea that multiple interventions could be important. And in almost not give someone false hope at first or almost too much excitement, I'd say, maybe don't expect everything to come at once, but let improvement come in layers. And there will be tweaks and setbacks. But really, if you can just think about with this treatment, which really, as you're on it longer, more and more areas of improvement, come to life, if you can keep iterating, and again, which can be in small steps or in large steps, and make it collaborative, whether it's bringing in other interventions that you might need or that your doctor might suggest and you agree with, and letting it not be a straight line, because recovery often isn't linear. But again, as you continue to layer things and iterate and have a support network, these interventions, and especially keto, will become second nature. And then you're really just almost like you're whittling away at a sculpture, or at, making a figurine of your stability and your recovery. It's going to be what feels good to you, not necessarily what is prescribed to you. And I find that keto is such a personalized part of the journey that with the right support and the sometimes really hard to have patience, it's worth it, because you're going to get to this, what I think the end of suffering, which is because you now have a stronger base. I'm excited because the longer I stay on keto, what I think, the more benefits I think that I'll just start to notice and experience, as I stay on it. Because I really do plan, this is it for me. Like this, I plan to stay on keto for life. The benefits are too great. And it doesn't feel like an effort for me. It doesn't even feel like a diet. And when you think that evolutionarily, we all would really be on or eat in a ketogenic way, pre-agricultural movement, I don't really feel this as a diet. I just feel like it's a natural way of eating.
Thank you for watching. If you want to see more, check out these recommended videos. Also, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our content and help us expand the movement. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, access our resources, read the latest research, or check out the Think Smart framework, click here to visit our website. See you on the next video.